la tribuna centrală pe doamna Harrington-Buhay pentru prezentarea discursului dumneei. Madam, the floor is yours.
Bună dimineața! Stimate domnule președinte, onorabili membri ai Parlamentului, distinși oaspeți, este o onoare pentru echipa Națiunilor Unite să mă adresez acestui for și să celebrăm împreună Declarația Universală a Drepturilor Omului, marcată în fiecare an pe 10 decembrie. Am venit în fața dumneavoastră pentru că declarația afirmă că voința poporului se află la baza guvernului, iar dumneavoastră exprimați voința oamenilor din Moldova. Prin urmare, dorim să vă implicăm mai direct în activitățile noastre și să vă oferim sprijinul ONU în munca dumneavoastră de o importanță vitală. Cu permisiunea dumneavoastră, voi continua în limba engleză. Our reasons to come to you are very clear. People look to you to ensure their voices are heard. You are on the front line, fighting every day for basic services in your communities, for safe water, for schools and clinics, decent jobs, a clean environment. You are working to protect women and girls from domestic violence, to ensure children have the right to grow up in a family. You set long-term goals of policy and you foresee funding to ensure those commitments are made. You ensure the country meets its United Nations international obligations in a wide range of development issues and to protect and promote human rights. The United Nations comes to you today with 4 proposals to inform you about our work and invite you to know us better, to request your support to our work in your legislative, budgetary, oversight and representation roles, to offer the UN's policy expertise in support of your duties, and fourthly, to launch with you today Moldova's national consultation on the future we want, part of a worldwide consultation that will define tomorrow's global development agenda. Let me begin by describing our work in Moldova. For the United Nations, the timing of this plenary session could not be better. Not only are we celebrating the 64th year of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but on the 1st of January 2013, the United Nations will begin a new 5-year phase of cooperation in the Government of Moldova United Nations Partnership Framework. The partnership is entitled Towards Unity in Action, meaning both unity between Moldova and the United Nations and unity internally across the UN family to deliver our support effectively and efficiently and ever closer to the people. Together with the government, 3 pillars have been identified. Pillar A is no doubt close to your own hearts, that of democratic governance, justice, equality and human rights. This is about the transformation both of Moldovan society and of its institutions its executive, judiciary and legislature. This pillar reflects the commitment of the signatories of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights to the inherent dignity and equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family. Pillar B covers human development and social inclusion. It responds to the needs of local authorities and their communities, and no doubt your constituents, for quality and inclusive education, universal access to healthcare, adequate social protection, and decent work, particularly for women. It reflects the pledge in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights to promote social progress and better standards of life in larger freedom. Pillar C addresses environmental sustainability, helping Moldova make more sustainable use of its natural resources, promoting efficient and renewable energy, and building community resilience to natural disasters and climate change. In all these areas, the UN is committed to working across the territory of the Republic of Moldova. These pillars mirror the United Nations Millennium Declaration of 2000, when 189 world leaders affirmed that the following values should govern international cooperation in the 21st century: freedom, equality, solidarity, tolerance, and respect for nature. So coming to my second point, and our request for your support. As the people's representatives, it is vital to us that you know our work, including in the communities you represent, and that you advise us on how the UN can best help. Your legislative role is naturally of central importance, and I will return to this shortly. Your oversight of the budget is essential to translate good intentions, and indeed good policies, into reality by funding relevant actions and institutions. The UN goals require your leadership. It's worth noting that no country has succeeded in ensuring all its inhabitants are able to participate fully in public affairs and public life. Enacting new rights, removing unjust laws, these are necessary requisites, but they're not always sufficient to secure change. Too often discrimination persists in practice and in mindsets. We count on your advocacy for the issues that you and we care about. Looking back at 2012, the Parliament must be proud of its many legislative successes in improving lives by honouring rights and development commitments. This year saw important steps to protect people living with HIV/AIDS, to empower children and adults with intellectual disabilities, to better include Roma people in all spheres of life. Equal opportunity legislation gave legal tools to victims of unequal treatment. Accreditation of social service entities ensured quality of service provision. The reform of social security and pensions paved the way for greater sustainability. Universal access was secured to reproductive health services. The policy on preventing non-communicable diseases tackled public health concerns. New legislation addressed the integration needs of foreigners and refugees. Moldova became one of few countries in the world with formal procedures to determine statelessness. Looking ahead, 2013 will clearly be no less important. Of the many issues on your agenda will be amendments to the National Human Rights Action Plan. We are encouraged that Parliament may consider abolishing solitary confinement for child offenders. We trust you will take leadership on the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control. We anticipate you will further integrate migrants as assets in your society. And as Parliament considers the proposed amendments to the laws on gender equality and on electoral financing, it has a golden opportunity to accelerate Moldova's representation of women in politics and in the economy in line with Moldova's international commitments. So the United Nations is asking a lot of you. Let me now suggest how we believe the UN can support your work. The UN supports the functioning of the Parliament directly in a programme that builds parliamentary capacity for consultations with constituents and civil society, for the drafting of legislation and budget reviews, and for the oversight of policy implementation. In addition, we would like to offer the support of the UN team more broadly. The UN team in Moldova has policy expertise and practical experience in the range of issues that are covered by the partnership framework: democratic governance, human rights, inclusive human development, and environmental sustainability. As a body that is universally present through development activities in 166 countries across all regions of the world, the United Nations draws on a wide range of evidence from across the globe as to what works. We wish to put this knowledge at your disposal, and in accordance with our respective mandates, the United Nations team offers its collective policy capacity to support you in your legislative work. Finally, my fourth proposal. We invite you to launch here with us today Moldova's national consultation on the future it wants. The Millennium Development Goals, agreed at the Millennium Assembly in New York in the year 2000, expire in 2015. The MDGs were highly successful in galvanizing political commitment and donor support to halve poverty, secure universal education, empower girls and women, tackle HIV/AIDS, tuberculosis, protect the environment, and generate a global partnership. Much progress has been made, and indeed Moldova advanced in all 8 goals. Unfinished business naturally remains. For Moldova, this is particularly the case in the disease and environment goals. There are still 3 years to accelerate our efforts to achieve those MDGs. However, as the expiry date draws closer, it is equally important to set new global goals for the post-2015 period, therefore sustaining much-needed international support. The UN Secretary-General is clear that the voices of the people must be heard in this process. To this end, he has asked UN teams in over 60 countries to organise national consultations and consult broadly across elected politicians, public officials, civil society, grassroots organisations, the private sector, trade unions, workers and academics to identify the concerns and aspirations of the people in Moldova. The Secretary-General has specifically asked us to consult those often excluded from public debate, whose voices may not always be heard. The results of the national consultations will provide a platform for the UN Moldova dialogue on the post-2015 agenda, and will help convey Moldova's vision on its future into the negotiations on the global development framework. Now is the moment to find a new consensus around a renewed global partnership. As the United Nations Secretary-General reminds us, the voices of all people must be heard, and they will count. In the view of the UN, it is therefore only fitting that we launch the national consultation with you, the people's representatives. We look forward to a close and fruitful cooperation between the Parliament of the Republic of Moldova and the United Nations family, and we thank you for your kind attention.
Stimați colegi, în numele plenului Parlamentului vreau să vă propun să mulțumim pentru discursul rostit în fața plenului pe doamna Harrington-Buhay și să exprim deplină disponibilitate a forului legiuitor și deplină deschidere pentru continuarea și aprofundarea colaborării atât cu Oficiul ONU la Chișinău, cât în egală măsură pe această cale cu toate instituțiile din marele grup, din marea familie a Organizațiilor Națiunilor Unite. Sunt absolut sigur că împărtășiți acest punct de vedere. Această cooperare vine cu beneficiu mutual și vine cu efecte și rezultate concrete de susținerea procesului de progres și dezvoltare economică, socială, democratică a Republicii Moldova. Mulțumată doamnă, vă mulțumim foarte mult. Rog, doamna Palifovici, să preluați continuarea ședinței.
Stimați colegi, ordinea de zi.